Dear friends, in today's session we will discuss the essay The Worship of the Wealthy by G.K. Chesterton. In this video session you will find a summary of the essay and the question answers also. Now let us begin the discussion of the essay. The Worship of the Wealthy by G.K. Chesterton. G.K. Chesterton, born in London on the 29th of May 1874, educated at St. Paul's School, later obtained a degree of English literature from a University College, London. He chose to be a writer as his tastes were literary and journalistic. As a journalist, he wrote essays on social criticism. The present essay, The Worship of the Wealthy, is an excellent example of social criticism. The scintillating wit and paradoxical style sparkle with the with glow of glamour and novelty, make the common reader peep through his paradoxical style and wit in describing day-to-day incidents which are left unnoticed. The Worship of the Wealthy is about how journalists and literary people falsely praise the people who are wealthy and great. The author also gives some examples of how the poor and common people praise the wealthy persons. The author says that he noticed in literature and journalism this type of falsehood is silently creeping as a tradition praising the wealthy people. The common people are wishing to please a rich man for their personal gains simply by saying all types of flattering words. The courtiers sang that their king almost resembles the sun at noonday, that they should shade their eyes when he enters the court. Further, they say that they could not breathe without him. He is one who conquered all continents with his single sword. The moderns have invented a much more poisonous kind of eulogy. The modern method of flattery is to take the prince or rich man to give a credible picture of his type of personality by enormously exaggerating his natural qualities. The newer and cleverer flatterer takes for granted that he is extraordinary, and therefore even ordinary things into extraordinary flattering. Thus, the author G.K. Chesterton has tried to give his paradoxical instances of how poor and common people are always flattering the rich and the great for personal gains and benefits. Most probable question answers on The Worship of the Wealthy 1. What theme does Chesterton explore in The Worship of the Wealthy? Answer: the theme of flattery. 2. Why does Chesterton dislike the way journalists praise the wealthy? Answer: because journalists flatter the wealthy for things they didn't earn, creating an illusion of greatness. 3. What does Chesterton think about the language journalists use when writing about the wealthy? Answer: he thinks it is artificial and inappropriate. 4. What words does Chesterton criticize journalists for using when describing the wealthy? Answer: simple, quiet, and modest. 5. According to Chesterton, what is wrong with calling the wealthy simple or modest? Answer: these words are often the opposite of what the wealthy person is, and they misrepresent their true nature. 6. What does Chesterton suggest about the relationship between journalists and the wealthy? Answer: he suggests that journalists need the wealthy for their work, and the wealthy praise journalists for their flattering writing. 7. How does Chesterton view the character sketches of the wealthy in the press? Answer: he believes they reveal very little about the person and are often unrealistic. 8. What example of a simple and quiet description does Chesterton mock in the essay? Answer: the description of Whiteley's funeral as simple and quiet despite its lavish nature. 9. How does Chesterton feel about modern journalism's use of exaggerated praise? Answer: he feels it lacks originality and fails to properly inform or entertain readers. 10. What does Chesterton suggest journalists should do if they are going to lie about the wealthy? Answer: he suggests they should exaggerate boldly rather than misrepresenting ordinary traits as extraordinary. 11. What is Chesterton's main criticism of the press when writing about the wealthy? Answer. He criticizes the press for over glorifying the wealthy and using artificial language to make them seem exceptional. 11. What is Chesterton's main criticism of the press when writing about the wealthy? Answer. He criticizes the press for over glorifying the wealthy and using artificial language to make them seem exceptional.
Critically appreciate the worship of the wealthy by G.K. Chesterton. Answer. In The Worship of the Wealthy, G.K. Chesterton presents a sharp critique of the media's tendency to flatter the rich. Written as part of his All Things Considered collection, the essay focuses on how journalists praise the wealthy, often to an exaggerated and artificial degree. Chesterton argues that this kind of praise is not misleading but also harmful, as it creates an illusion of greatness around those who may not only deserve it. At the heart of the essay is Chesterton's concern with flattery. He believes that the press, instead of presenting an honest view of the wealthy, goes to extremes in their descriptions. Journalists often take ordinary traits or behaviors of the rich and present them as extraordinary. For instance, simple hobbies like disliking doctors or liking cats are exaggerated into signs of greatness just because the person is wealthy. Chesterton sees this as dishonest because it misrepresents the reality of these individuals' lives. Moreover, Chesterton criticizes the way the press portrays the rich as intelligent or deep thinkers. He points out that even if a wealthy person has no remarkable thoughts or ideas, journalists will frame their opinions as if they were profound. This is another form of flattery, where even the most basic or dull statements are made to sound intelligent. Chesterton's frustration lies in the fact that such portrayals are far from accurate and only serve to inflate the image of the wealthy. One of Chesterton's most biting critiques is of the way the press describes the rich's lavish lifestyles as modest or simple. He finds this particularly irritating when such descriptions are applied to extravagant events like funerals, where the wealthy are said to have simple ceremonies, even though they are filled with luxury and attended by important figures. Chesterton mocks this portrayal, asking whether a funeral could only be simple if it involved human sacrifice. For him, this kind of description is absurd and dishonest, as it hides the truth behind the appearance of modesty. Chesterton's dissatisfaction with the press extends beyond the flattery of the wealthy. He also criticizes journalists for lacking originality in their writing. The constant use of the same few words, simple, quiet, and modest, to describe the rich makes their writing predictable and unimaginative. Chesterton feels that such repetition reflects a deeper problem in journalism. The press is more interested in maintaining a flattering image of the wealthy than in presenting an honest or creative account of reality. In conclusion, Chesterton argues that the way journalists portray the wealthy is not only misleading but also damaging. By turning ordinary traits into extraordinary ones and calling lavish lives modest, they create a false image of greatness that ultimately harms the public's understanding of wealth and class. Chesterton suggests that if the press must lie about the wealthy, they should at least do so in an exaggerated, overtly artificial way, rather than misrepresenting the truth with empty praise. The essay serves as a critique of both the wealthy and the media that supports them, calling for a more honest and straightforward approach to journalism.